Hey guys, Bharadwaj with Fonearena.com here. I have the Gionee Elife E5 in my hands. Amazingly sleek device and recently launched in India for 18,999. So what we are going to do is take a quick look at the camera samples, the performance and the UI. So this is a camera review of the Elife E5. So the specifications of the Elife E5 includes 8 megapixel sensor on the back here. It is protected by a steel rim around it, and it's slightly raised because the device is very thin. You also can see a single LED flash below the sensor, and above the sensor is the secondary microphone to record stereo audio in video recording. Yes, the phone also can record 1080p video at 30 fps. So that's the Gionee Elife E5. It runs on the MediaTek MT6589 Turbo system on a chip. And over at the front, you have the 5 megapixel front facing camera, which is pretty standard these days, and it can record 720p videos, which is quite normal. So it's pretty good for video calling and all the stuff. So let's take a look at the different user interface here. So at first look, you might see that it is very different from the other MediaTek based cameras. So over at the top right, you have the toggle between the stills mode and the video mode. In the video mode, you can notice that you cannot take a picture while recording a video. That is a bit different from the other phones. But let's switch back and first go through the entire modes of the stills UI. Over at the bottom right, you have the direct jump to the gallery through a thumbnail. You can also take a look at the thumbnails by swiping to the right. And over here you have all the settings, but before that let's take a look at the toggles here. This is the zoom toggle, and as you can see, the user interface is pretty slow. So I would say that pretty laggy this user interface is. So yeah, the front facing camera at the top, the zoom slider at the left, and over at the bottom left you have the modes toggle, which reveals all the other modes. Over at the top you have the capture mode, which has many modes. Normal panorama, multi-angle view, which is a sweep panorama, face beauty, best shot, and EV bracket shot. If you can notice here, the list of these items are exactly the same as the ones on the MediaTek camera app. You also have a capture action. A touch shot takes a photo on touch. Gesture shot takes a photo when you do this gesture. So this was a gesture shot when I did the victory sign for in front of the camera. That is the gesture shot. Pretty weird, we would say. The smile shot is which will take a photo when you smile. So that's that. And then you have the flash toggles, which are weirdly buried under the settings. It should be naturally outside the settings naturally, but it's pretty buried, so that's a bummer. And then you have color effects, which is pretty normal, standard effects. And then you have the phone booth effects, which adds a frame. Again, pretty weird, we would say. And then you have the in-depth settings, which has all the settings that you would require out of camera. So there is swinging switch, which we have no idea of what it is about. So we couldn't find it in the user manual. We couldn't find it on Gionee's website. Even in the Chinese website, we couldn't find anything about it. So we are not sure what it is. But if you get to know what it is, you can let us know in the comment section below. Then you have the scene modes, which you can change by by pressing the left button. You have the night mode and the other modes, landscape, everything else in the scene modes. And then you have white balance, which can be changed. And then you have zero shutter delay, which is called ZSD. Then you have the store location, continuous shot. Everything is pretty normal here. Pretty normal stuff here in the UI. So that's part of stills. Moving on to video now. Video is a lot lesser than stills. You have the video light, you have the white balance, and the color effects. That's it. And going into the settings, you can see that the video quality is set to fine, which will record at 1080p video, 1080p 30 fps. And then you have electronic image stabilization, focus mode, which is infinity, continuous, and just continuous and infinity. That's it. And then you have exposure, which we just mistakenly changed. You can set exposure, compensation, and then you have the focus mode, and then also the scene modes. The video duration can also be changed, and a whole lot of other controls for the video. Pretty extensive, we guess, controls for saturation and contrast in video, which is normally not seen elsewhere. So that was a quick look at the user interface of the Gionee Elife E5. Pretty normal user interface, but could be a lot better because important settings like flash shouldn't be buried inside a square. So that's it. But now let's talk about the camera performance. This is an 8 megapixel camera. It can take 8 megapixel camera in 4:3. So we took a couple of daylight samples, macro samples, and low light samples. First, check out the daylight samples. Pretty normal, we would say. The post-processing is very aggressive and smoothens out all the details. So that's not really good in our opinion. But otherwise, we also found that the photo is slightly muted in terms of colors. You do not get the real true colors from real. So that's one other issue. But we think for this price, this is just average. We think the competitors do much better. For example, the Canvas 4 and the Canvas Doodle 2 do much better in terms of price per performance. And then one other issue we noted is the Pincushion distortion in images. As you can see that the wide angle lens here takes decent photos, but in the ends of the photo you can see that there is a little bit of Pincushion distortion, which kind of is worrying because most of the photos you take are landscape photos and most of the photos end up with Pincushion distortion. That too to an effect this range, then it is probably a bit of worrying. And also you can notice that there is a lot of noise in these photos. So moving on to macro shots, you can take a couple of macro samples here, take a look at them. So in terms of macro shots, you can see that there is not much of detail. So the Elife E5 does pretty well in terms of macro shots, pretty nicely detailed and nicely exposed as well, because this was pretty dark when we took, and it is nicely exposed. But then again, we also shot another kind of macro shot, close-up shot, which had a green colored cast on it. So that's one disadvantage of the camera. The white balance is not pretty well in some photos, but that's an isolated issue, I guess. Now let's move on to some low light samples. The low light samples, as we expected, are pretty bad. We took 2 samples. In all the modes, there was a lot of noise and pretty much unusable in terms of the photo quality. With flash though, it was slightly better, but we think the Elife could do certainly a lot better than what it is. But I guess that's the constraint of the camera. So that's that. Moving on to video samples, take a look at one video sample that we shot here. So that was the video sample you saw here. Pretty muted colors, pretty over sharpened video. We think it's just average. The audio quality is quite good though, and overall we think it's just decent, nothing spectacular, but nothing that we would usually expect from a price point at this range. So that's about it for the Gionee Elife E5's camera review. Stills wise, we are not much impressed. It's just average. And video wise too, not much impressed. We think it's just an average camera, and competitors definitely have done better, so we're not giving points for Gionee here in terms of camera performance. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Do hit the like button if you like this video, and do subscribe to our channel for more videos like these.